And welcome back in another edition Stripe Show podcast. I'm your host, Travis Fulton. Thank you for making us part of your day. My man, Garrick Higgo, he pulled it off. First official start on the PGA Tour. Well, if you want to start the PGA, I guess you could count the PGA as a start on the PGA Tour. But I look at this one as the first start for the young 23-year-old from the European Tour. You watch podcasts, you watch the gambling shows, you know darn well who Garrick Higgo is. He's won 3 times on the European Tour. Now he makes his way over here, and he comes out with the bang. The South African, love his game. And I thought, there's one guy that I know that knows everything about Garrick Higgo, and he's a fellow South African. And you hear him on CBS Sports all the time. You hear him on PGA Tour Radio. He does a great job. And he joins me here. Mark Immelman, you've got to be over the moon for this young man, don't you?
Really, yeah. It was a thrill. Everywhere he's one of those sort of generational talents. He and Wilco both, to be honest with you. But Garrick's got a little something about him, and everyone's sort of known. I met him for the first time at the Junior President's Cup back in 2017, and his game was one thing, but I was just struck at just the manner of the man. He is so well put together, and so there's just everything in perspective, and full of manners and polite and just a gem of a human being. And he made an impression upon me then as a young teenager then, and then came to college for a bit, and then all of a sudden now he's one of the leading golfers in the world. Now I don't want to say that we're not surprised, but to a certain extent you're always surprised because the level of competition is so deep. But you could see he had all of the tools, and you could see he had all of the mental moxie. And you can see by, some of his life events, he sort of got stuff into perspective a little bit too. So, to be there, to be on site, to spend a little time with him, to call his action in the final round, it was a thrill to see and to be there and to be the first one to tell him that he had won because he was on the driving range. I'm honored. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there that you said. He went to college, UNLV, and he's spending his time, of course, primarily on the European Tour, where he's won twice this year. And I get up and I watch the European Tour in the morning, and I'm just sitting there and I'm watching this Garrick Higgo over and over again. And I'm like, all right, he's got the long game. He's impressive off the tee, 310, 315, cruising speed, just doesn't even look like he's really trying, and it's out there 310, 315. He can go longer than that if he needs it. His iron game is sharp. His short game looks good. His putter looks really good. I think right now he's second putts per green. They don't have the stats on the European Tour that the PGA Tour has, but he's an impressive putter as well. Like, there's no weaknesses there. But more than that, I'm just watching this kid. I'm like, man, he just looks mature. He looks comfortable. He looks like he belongs. I remember he was playing in a tournament. He was up 2. I think it was a second win on the European Tour. He rolls into the back 9. He makes a hole in 1. And then he goes, and then the next hole, he makes another birdie. I mean, he's just like, you could just tell, like, he belongs. He's confident. He's taking it as it comes. I'm not surprised. I'm really not. I actually sprinkled a little on him to win at the PGA, thinking, why not? I mean, the kid could come over here and kind of a links feel. And I hit him this week, 47-1. He was my pick on Cash Out with the coaches, and I've been telling Coachman and the others, I'm telling you, man, this Higgo is the real deal. He's got the game, and this maturity is just next level. Talk about his golf swing, because I know you were out there with him on the range, and he's made some comments in social media about his swing. What are some things that he's working on right now, Mark?
Well, to be honest, he said the main focus has been the short game, and I'm with you. He's easy long. He can generate up to about 123 mile an hour clubhead speed. But the putting, the chipping, the imagination, that is where I think he really thrives, and that's maybe why at Congaree, with the setup of that golf course there, where you could be creative around the greens, he was the guy that sort of lasted, because at the end, it became a bit of a war of attrition, with a wind switch and the final holes coming into the wind and hence playing a little longer. So, it sort of mitigated ball striking a little bit, I would guess. But as far as the golf swing goes, he keeps stuff very, very simple. He and his longtime coach, Chris Barnard, and I have to give him some props there, because you know what it's like. You know, when you're an aspirant young golfer and things might not be going your way, it's easy to, you know, chop and change and seek out different opinions and stuff. But he's worked with Chris since he was a young boy, and he's remained true to his coach. And that speaks to the old head on young shoulders, if you will. But with the golf swing, you know, he's not afraid of hitting a tumbling hook once in a while. You know, it doesn't scare him off. You know, he hits a little sort of sliding draw, can fade it if he needs to, but it doesn't ever look like he's afraid to hit a bad one, which I think is cool, which allows him, like on the final hole yesterday, it's into, for him, a left to right wind. So maybe a little more comfortable than the right-handers, but it's narrow, you know, and you got to put it in the fairway, you know, because the greens were firm, and he just gets up there and laces like this, turning left to right down the fairway. And I was like, you know, that not just speaks to the golf swing, but speaks to the trust in the swing. So he keeps it very simple. He's always working, if there is anything, with the tour striker ball between his forearms, because he tends to sort of raise the arms and the trail elbow gets to lifting, and in behind him and stuff gets sort of a little loose and across the line. And so it makes change of direction a little harder, because he tends to be sort of slidey through the ball some. If you watch his forward foot, it rolls over a little bit, like old school, if you will. And so he's working on just trying to keep the elbows a little more pinched, I guess. You know, that allows him to govern the backswing a bit more with his body and keep things a little shorter and tighter. And I think it's why I would say if there was a hallmark to his game, it's the short game is good, but he's a wonderful iron striker.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of that, where he just tries to keep things a little more short, a little more in front. It's not like he doesn't look like he's chasing distance all of the time. That's why he's a good iron striker. So very simple approach, you know, line up the backswing, keep the arms in front, and from there he just sort of pulls the trigger, and whatever comes out, it sort of comes out. He doesn't ever feel phased about anything, you know. Yeah,
there's a real simplicity, you know, I think, to these kinds of players, and we're seeing it a lot now. He doesn't strike me as a let's get on 3D and TrackMan and like let's make sure everything's really, really tight, you know. Yeah. Like he just strikes me as let's give it some direction. Let's let me feel it. Let's let me discover it, and then let me play golf. Right. That's my observation from the outside looking in. I look at a swing, and it is, you make a good point. It is kind of like an old school swing. It kind of gets a little bit in behind him, you know, and then it gets a little cross, and that tour striker ball will help him with that. And then, you know, his legs, you know, they kind of drive out in front laterally. He takes on side bend, and like all these things, a young man showing up modern lesson tee a lot of times, like a lot of coaches are going to change that. You know, they're going to be like, look, we got to keep your pelvis underneath you. We got to get your spine more on top. We got to, you know, all those things, right? You get it. And I look at him, I'm like, man, I love the DNA, you know, in the swing. It's like a Will Zalatoris. It's kind of his swing, you know, and it's not coached out of him. So his coach, you know, I think obviously has protected his genius and his talent, and just kind of letting some of these things be, keep it simple, let the kid go play and find it, because he can do that. I mean, he can find it, and he's not afraid to hit a bad shot. I think that's a great point, and something for people listening, particularly the younger generation. You're going to hit some bad shots, and he just does kind of tend to just flow with it. Like there's not, you know, he almost looks like he's smiling, but he's not smiling, but he's okay with whatever's going to happen. Right. And that's a real gem and real skill to have, just to accept what happens.
I think and a lot of it also is the athlete inside. High school, he went to a school very close to where we grew up called Paul Rust Gymnasium. And it's a very athletic school, you know, lots of rugby, cricket, tennis, all that sort of thing. And all South African kids play everything. And you could see in him, you know, the athlete, because to your point, you know, he stays the upper body behind the thing as long as anyone, I mean, Zalatoris, I think is comparable, but he certainly, you know, there's in behind the thing. He's not allowed to hit it from under, he's not afraid to hit it from underneath the golf ball at all, where everyone else is trying to cover the thing and hit these trap fades, if you will. And he just gets out there, and it looks like it's to to me, sort of a point-to-point endeavor. You know, it's not like I have to hit the fade to this point. It's like I just got to get the ball to that point, and how it comes out and how it goes, I'm not going to be too flustered about, because if it gets to where I'm trying to be, I'm sort of setting up the next shot. Now, there are times when you'll see him vary trajectory a little bit, and to me, that's maybe why he won in the Canary Islands a couple of times, because it can get windy there. And where he grew up down in South Africa, it gets quite windy. So he can trap the thing, he can flight it down. But as far as the side spin goes, I mean, when he was just keeping loose prior to the potential playoff yesterday in Congaree, you know, he had a few wedges. You know, the distance control is always very tight with the irons. And then he went to a 3-wood, you know, smashed the first one. Second one came out sort of left and turning over real hard. It's not like he ever looked phased about it. And then he just stepped away and came and talked to me, and we watched golf on my television monitor for about 5 minutes. And then another ball. So it's wonderfully refreshing. And I think, if, to your point, you know, lessons for someone listening, maybe in the interests of all this data access we have, and he has a launch monitor he works along with that, you know, when he's practicing prior to events. Maybe there's a little too much analysis going on, where Garrick is just like club, ball, target, get the ball there, and then advance. And he really, he has the length of the tee to compete anywhere. But he doesn't always hit it as hard as he can. That's the thing. But it's all about setting up like what looks to me like the third shot. And he's got a wonderful sort of savvy approach to when he misses, miss in the right spot. And that, I think, is crucial to, you know, playing any style course and playing in any sort of conditions, really.
Well, he's 23 years of age. I want to ask you about South Africa, Mark. And I know your brother's got to be just so excited right now. Trevor Immelman, of course.
Together.
I mean, he's got to be happy with his boy Garrick Higgo. But there's Eric Van Rooyen tied for 10th.
Yeah.
Wilco, Nienaber. Did I say that right?
Nienaber.
T14 played very well. Take us to.
I want to park there for a little bit.
Okay.
Wilco will turn your head. And everyone's oogling over Bryson. And what Bryson's done is admirable because of the sacrifice and the work that he's put in. But if Wilco decides to hit one, it's not going to be a contest. It will not be a contest.
Okay.
Wilco won't even break a sweat, bro. I mean, this guy, he's built like a 1-iron. He's an athletic man, fast, and he's got this big wide swing arc, and he'll fly at 350. You use the term cruising speed. I mean, he just does not break a sweat at all. I mean, I heard a story when he went out to Ping to go and test drivers, or test clubs for the first time ever, and they got this net at the end of the range. And they've got some hitters on their squad. I mean, Bubba can move the thing. They got some guys off the tee on their staff that can really hit it. And Wilco was habitually flying the thing over the top of the net that they'd built to contain Bubba Watson and company. So it's real, man. I got to tell you, I was sort of selfishly hoping, Travis, that, you know, last week in Congaree, that we would sort of get to introduce Wilco to the world, because very soon the world's going to know who he is.
That's great.
His game is raw. He's working hard on his putting, he told me. Man, the ingredients are there, and he could contend in long drive contests, and he plays on the world's tours.
Wow. Well, that's going to be fun to watch. I mean, it's Garrick, Wilco. There's a guy over there by the name of Guido, who is another great player in Europe. And I enjoy watching the European Tour in the morning. You got to get up and watch these. And, you know, the European Tour certainly is not as deep as the PGA Tour, but it's cool to see guys like Garrick come over here and do this, you know, and win and show, look, these guys obviously are the real deal. So many great players from South Africa. Take us down there, Mark, to South Africa and what it's like, how golf is positioned there, but in the reason, or a couple reasons, just so many great players, right, coming from that region.
Yeah, well, there are various reasons. First off, I mean, it's just a sporting nation, and internet is hard to come by over down there. So people get out and play sport, and if you're athletic, you play everything. And in schools, for the longest time, I'm not sure how it is now, you had to play a summer sport and you had to play a winter sport, no matter your level of athletic inclination at all. So what we do is built on outdoor living, and rugby and cricket and soccer are certainly the biggest sports there. But because of Mr. Player, and then by extension Ernie Els, certainly, Ernie was like our Tiger Woods. He made golf cool, and so a lot of these Afrikaans-speaking kids that would be playing rugby and stuff like that, they picked up golf. And so that's a reason. You got to hand some credit to the folks over there at Golf RSA. Johan Rupert put so much financial support and wherewithal behind the young talent. And then Golf RSA, led by Grant Hepburn and some of the folks over there, they're identifying kids, which was never happening, never used to happen. And they're allowing these young talents the chance to compete and to get out and play against the best and be noticed. Because the truth of it is, you can work on the game and get good at your home club and be really good on the range, but you really find your gears when you're competing against folks that are better than you. And then you see, because, necessity is the mother of all invention. So if you've got skill and then you get challenged by someone better than you, like Garrick and these guys that are making it onto the world's tours and then playing against the best, that's where it unlocks this other stuff in you. And so Golf RSA has had a big part to play in that. And then the Sunshine Tour has also made these guys relevant, in the deals they've done with the European Tour especially. It's allowed these young talents like a Dean Burmester, for argument's sakes, or I don't know, you go back to Louis and Charles and even Trevor to a large extent. They all play through the European Tour, and they go over there, they play the Challenge Tour, which is hard slogging, and you learn about yourself. Brooks Koepka is a good example. Then you hopefully graduate to the European Tour, which week in and week out, you're going to different countries, different courses, different languages, different conditions. So you learn how to play golf quickly. And then from there, if you have the moxie and the wherewithal and you're good enough, then you can get a starter tour on the PGA Tour and hopefully make it. So the Sunshine Tour down there has had a large part to play in allowing these talents to develop further, learn about the professional game and just continue to make strides in their career.
Rapsodo Mobile Launch Monitor. Improve your golf swing today. Pro-level launch data in the palm of your hand. It is very accurate, within 2% of a $20,000 unit. The Rapsodo MLM app automatically tracks stats and stores video with Shot Tracer, helpful for club gapping and understanding true distances for each club. Rapsodo MLM provides immediate feedback, data, and creates a better practice environment, not mindlessly hitting balls. Extremely portable, cases about the size of a rangefinder. And you know what? You can use it both indoors and outdoors. I love this launch monitor. It's the Rapsodo Mobile Launch Monitor. Check it out at rapsodo.com, rapsodo.com, rapsodo.com.
Here we are, U.S. Open week on the Stripe Show podcast, and really honored to be joined by one of the best caddies in the game, one of the nicest guys out on the PGA Tour, Paul Tesori, joining us live from San Diego, site of the U.S. Open, Torrey Pines. Paul, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Man, I love that introduction. Can we just do a quick rewind and let you do that again? That's gotten me all fired up. Yeah, good to be out in San Diego. Anytime we got the U.S. Open roll around, it's a special place in my heart to kind of get after it a little bit.
Now, Paul, were you there last time in 2008 when we had the epic battle between Rocco Mediate and Tiger Woods?
I was. VJ, and who I was working for at the time, him and I think Jamie Lovemark might have had a battle for 68th or 69th, somewhere down there at the bottom. So I don't remember who that was down there with us, but no, we made the cut but didn't play well.
It really is an epic golf course. And we've seen some of the shots on social media. where we've seen how deep the rough is. What exactly, how long do you think this golf course is going to play? It's a big ballpark. They can make it as long or as short as they want it this week.
Yeah. So for a guy like Webb, one reason why we never play, the tournament in late January, early February is that it's so cool. It's wet. The ball's going nowhere. And so obviously for Webb being one of the shorter players on tour, we're not that excited. But U.S. Open Torrey, it's a different golf course in a lot of ways. It brings guys like Webb, brings his game kind of back more into the fold where fairways will matter, wedge play will matter. The fairways will be firmer and faster, which will make the fairways play tighter. Again, good for Webb, but also bring in kind of more of the iron play. So we get excited about Torrey U.S. Open. It's just a very different type of golf course. You'll still see, your better players play well, but fairways are going to matter. And the more fairways matter, the better it is for Webb. And the rough, they haven't messed around. It's up. They usually do this to us on kind of Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and then they'll listen to a lot of we can call them conversations, or you can just call them complaints, whatever it is from the players. And then they'll kind of make little adjustments. Wingfoot last year on Sunday and Monday, I didn't think anybody could beat 10 over par. It was completely unfair. If you were 3 yards off the fairway, it was just a pitch out where from what I've seen and heard already this week, it's going to be a little more fair, just kind of as the hole progresses, as you get closer, it's going to get a little higher. So they've put a lot of thought and effort into it, and it's going to be a great test.
Wow. So the rough off the tee won't be as high as, let's say, the rough that is around the greens.
Exactly. As you kind of progress down the hole, you can just tell they call it topping off. They'll top off the top layer. And the only reason why they do that, people think they're making the rough shorter. What they're doing is making sure the ball sinks to the bottom, which that's what they want, because this rough, the grass here, it's so thick that if they can get it towards the bottom by the root structure, it's just going to make it a lot more difficult to control, which is what they want. And, if you're a couple yards off, you can get it. But as you start to get to that 8 yards, 10 yards off, unless you can hit it in the people. Now, that's been a big advantage of Tiger Woods for a long time. Some of those 82 wins and Phil with those 45, if you can get it out by where the people have been and not hurt anybody, you're going to have a good lie. But if you're inside the ropes, it's going to be a tough one.
So it's going to be a premium on fairways more than it will on distance, has really what seemed to be as of late.
Absolutely. Which, again, if you look at a 7,700-yard golf course on the water, you would think it's going to be all distance. And I think it is, again, when you kind of look at the other part of the schedule. But this part, if you look at the leaderboard back in 2008, you saw a little bit of everything. You saw Rocco Mediate was a very short hitter, but a great wedge player, chipper, and putter. Obviously, Tiger, we know what he's done. And then you saw what Heath Slocum was in the top 10. Brant Snedeker in the top 10.
Lee Westwood.
Yeah, there you go. So you have guys that, not necessarily maybe are known for their length, but they're guys that are really good iron players, great wedge players. Webb and I went through the round. We could expect to hit up to 9 wedges a day. And people are like, what do you mean? Well, I mean, even if we have a great driving week, we're going to miss 4 fairways a day. That's 16 fairways during the week. We're going to lay up on 8 to 10 of those. So I still really think kind of that mid-iron play to wedge play, and obviously around the greens.
So I know you work with Webb on his swing as well. And so what have you guys worked on hard coming into this, considering, like you said earlier, you don't play the event earlier in the year in February?
Yeah, typically we would have kind of had all of that dialed in. Webb has been through a weird month period here where he hasn't been able to practice or play much. He hurt his neck, had to withdraw from his home golf. Right, he lives off the 7th hole at Quail, and he had to withdraw on Thursday morning from there with a neck issue, almost had to withdraw from the PGA. And then he got the flu, which, yeah, it's back now in 2021, and it was floored for 5 days. So, number one, he's hungry to be here. Number two, he's excited to be here, but he is rusty right now. So, we talked. He flew a short game guy in, Pat Goss, on Friday. We talked. We're really going to work hard on just tightening up the golf swing. Webb can get a little bit loose, a little bit long, and what we call kind of incomplete, where he'll kind of rush the downswing and he gets a little off. So we'll work hard on doing some completion drills, pause drills, and make sure that we get at least kind of that ball flight that he's looking at to hit some fairways.
Now, when I know that you do work a lot with Webb on his swing and whatnot, is there a time to say something when you see something's a little bit off, or is there a time you just kind of let it go and wait till the round's over?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part about what I do. Thankfully, we use Butch Harmon a couple of times a year, and I let Butch say what he needs to say. But the hardest part, I think, about having your caddy as your swing coach is the same guy that you've been out doing battle with for 5 hours, whatever it is, and maybe didn't play your best. is the same voice that's about to tell you, hey, buddy, we need to go hit some balls. And that's not always the easiest transition. He kind of looks at you sometimes, why don't you go hit balls and I'll go have dinner or something like that. But I've kind of learned now how to go about that. And on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I have free reign. I can say whatever. He might not always like it, and he'll let me know, hey, I don't want to hear that right now. And if it's important enough to me, he gives me the freedom to say, I don't care. We have to work on this now. And today will be a long work day. He's flying up this morning. I've been here. I'm rested up talking to you this morning and going to go out and get some work done. But it'll be a pretty good work day these next 2 days to make sure physically that we're in the right frame of mind.
We've seen so much of the caddy exchange going on without fans. We've seen with Phil and his brother at the PGA. We had Rory and his caddy and that amazing exchange at Quail where he was just going to chop out and his caddy's like, wait a second, would be better to take a drop, and it worked out. Has the caddy player exchange changed any at all, or are we just seeing more of it now?
It's definitely changed a lot. My first year out here was in 2000, and it was just at the time that we were about to start seeing a financial growth in the game. Tiger obviously busted on the scene in 97. And then really started getting hot in 2000 where he went to the other level, won 3 majors, and the game exploded. So my first answer is I think anything in life, no matter what business you're in, the more money there is something, the higher level of expertise is going to come into that job. And there's going to be more people fighting for that job. So I think the first thing is the level of caddy, kind of the eliteness of caddy has changed a lot, where almost everybody out here takes their job seriously, works hard, they know the game. At the beginning, I'm a +2. I was one of the top 5 best players out here as far as caddies go. I bet there's 30 guys, 40 guys now that are as good as I am. And I think it's a valuable part to have on the job. And I think the last part is a lot of the guys that are caddy now grew up watching Bones. They grew up watching John Wood. They grew up watching Stevie and Tiger. So you always notice their interactions. And so the players notice their interactions. The caddies notice their interactions. And now what you're seeing is a lot of guys learning from the relationships that 2 of the best players of our time had, and they kind of mimicked those, followed those, and I think it's for the best for most of the guys. Now, you might have the 10% of the guys that might need a little less info, but I think for the majority, to be able to talk it through as a player and have the guy on your back that understands, obviously, how to play the game, but also understands what you need, we're seeing more and more of that, and I get excited because I've been fortunate enough to get a lot of attention because of the guys that I've worked for. I think one of the greatest sayings by Fluff was, what makes a great caddy is a great player. And I've been fortunate enough to work for some great players. And there's probably another 60, 70 guys out there as good as I am at the job that just don't get as much attention.
Now, are things different in a major, the interaction that you're having with Webb throughout the round? Are they different in a major than they are, say, if you're playing even the players or, maybe the RBC Heritage? Is it a different interaction because the higher stakes?
So for us, purposefully, no. We keep it the same. Now, our preparation is very different. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday will look very different. A lot more talk about the course because generally it's a different course each year, except for Augusta. So we'll do a lot more talking about Torrey Pines South. The first few days, even Thursday, Friday, Saturday, just a little bit more. We'll sit down for 15 minutes before the round, just kind of go over the wind direction, where the tee boxes are, where the pins are, what we're going to be thinking. But as far as on the golf course, we have the same mentality, and that is in between shots is off time. So anything's up for grabs. We can talk about what you and I talked about this morning. We can talk about what you ate for breakfast last week. You can talk about, a round of golf you played the week before, NBA final or NBA playoffs. We love watching the finals. Even though it's lost a little luster, there's still some fun teams out there battling. So we'll try to fill that void always with non-golf stuff. So we'll try to keep it as simple as possible.
Now, as far as picking your lines off tees and stuff like that, is that done today, tomorrow, and Wednesday?
So, yes, for the most part. But, again, we know winds change all the time. So we still go over it before the round. We'll get the weather forecast out. We'll get the pins out. Generally, I already kind of know if they're going to do a tee box change or not just through word of mouth. And so we still go over each hole before the round and make sure there's no – we used to not do that. And we would get in these arguments at least once a day where I'm thinking about either a 3-wood and he's on drive, or I'm thinking about going this way and he's thinking about that way. And so now we try to get all that done before the round and just kind of – minimize any type of that interaction where you're disagreeing about a club on the course.
Now, will your strategy change at all considering Webb's position in the tournament and what day you're playing?
So I'd say very minimally. If for some reason you made the cut on the number going into Saturday, you'll sit back and go, okay, hey, here we've hit 3 wood on number 2. Today we're going to hit driver. Here on number, let's see what another good example out here might be. It's mostly drivers on every hole out here. But if there is another hole, if there's another play where maybe they moved the tee up one day on 14 like they did in 2008 and made it drivable. If we're close to the lead, it's an uncomfortable drive, we might just hit a 3-iron out there and a lob wedge in. But if you're, right on the cut line or just made the cut, you'll go ahead and hit driver and send it and try to make something happen. But for the most part, it's going to be the same type of golf. With 3 holes to play, if you need to make something happen, you might make a different decision on 18. If it's a front left pin, the greens are firm, you're downwind, you might hit driver just to make sure you're hitting it from long versus short with a tough wedge shot. So there's a lot of that stuff that goes into it. We try to stay as close to the game plan as possible. That was an old Tigerism, which is he never really changed. But, when you're leading 82 times or whatever that is, it's a little easier to go about, and maybe the greatest putter of all time too. So I take what he says, I put it in a little folder, and I try to learn from it, but also realize we're talking about the greatest of all time. So
it really is. I mean, Tiger's game plan has obviously worked to perfection many times.
Yeah.
But you do see guys where sometimes they do tend to get a little tentative. Just yesterday, watching Chesson Hadley, I feel like those last 3 holes, he played a little different than he had played going in. And sometimes playing safe, not to make a football reference, but sometimes a prevent defense does nothing but prevent you from winning.
Yeah,
it's smart to stick with the game plan all the way through.
It really is. I think that goes right back to that part about kind of your routine. And Chesson's a good friend. His caddy Cookie is a good friend of mine as well. And I was heartbroken for him yesterday to see it finish like that. You don't mind getting beat, but to, bogey the last 3. But the one thing that changed with Chesson was kind of his routine. Everything just got a little bit different. He got a little bit faster, and you're nervous. You obviously hadn't been in this position a long time. He's only played 2 Sundays the entire year of 2021.
Wow.
Going into this. So there was a lot on the plate. And I think if he has it to do over, he'll do better next time. Just slow down, deep breaths. And these are things, thank goodness, I used to have to talk to Webb about, but I don't anymore. He's a veteran now, 13 years. He understands how important his breathing is. He understands how important his routine is. And, that's another big Tigerism. He always tried to keep it the same amount of time, no matter if it was the 18th hole on Sunday or on Thursday, he tried to keep it the same amount of time. I remember Charles Howell asked him that putt that he made to beat DeMarco at the Masters that he made to win in the playoff, and it had a little too much pace on it. It was going to go about 3 feet by, and Charles asked him, he goes, Tiger, were you thinking about the speed of that putt, going by, about maybe hitting it a little bit softer? And Tiger didn't understand what he meant. He goes, I don't understand. He goes, well, you still had another hole, and goes, that putt meant the exact same thing as the first one on Thursday. And so that mentality was, why would I change the speed of the putt? It's the same exact result as the one I hit on the first hole on Thursday. And so it's trying to get into that frame of mind. And Webb's been able to do that, which is why I still think he's one of the best players in the world, even in a sport where obviously our lack of length does hinder us.
Yeah, I mean, it does, but I feel like the U.S. Open has done all they can to try and negate some of the distance gains by making the rough longer and putting a premium on fairways more than distance. And so it brings guys like Webb into the fold. And so, for example, this week, looking at the odds, there's only 13 players with better odds this week to win the golf tournament than Webb. So I think the USGA has done a good job of trying to bring everybody back to a more level playing field than giving the advantage to the Bombers.
I agree with, and I think what happened is last year it got flipped on them. Last year it was all Bombers on the top of the leaderboard, and when they went through and they looked, they figured out why. And Bryson talked about it in his press conference, is that they made the rough so long that where Webb was hitting it and where Bryson was hitting it, it's about a 50-yard difference. Well, Bryson obviously has a huge advantage from 50 yards up. You couldn't hit the fairways at Wingfoot because all the dog legs left and the fairways were sloped this way, and so they talked pretty hard. Jason Gore has done an incredible job with the USGA in his first 2 years of setting the golf course up. He's going to do it again this week. And that's why the talk is to make the rough a little bit higher as you go down. Now, we're not talking about that much higher, but we're talking about this much. So if Bryson does hit at 340 and he's trying to take an advantage, his lie might be a little bit worse than Webb, but Webb's going to be back, 50 or 60 yards. And so that'll kind of at least bring, you missed the fairway, I missed the fairway, let's bring that up. Brooks won the PGA at Bethpage Black, next to last in fairways hit for the week. And the rough was so high that it kind of took only one style of player into play. And so I think that's what they've done this week. And Torrey Pines South, it's a straighter golf course, not as many dog legs. And so now that's where I think it really plays into a guy like Webb's hand that hits it so straightaway holes. You don't have to bend and the ball's not running through the dog legs.
Right. Now, have you and Webb and the teachers that you guys work with, have you found yourself ever chasing distance, trying to hit the ball further?
Of course, 100%. And this is the crazy thing about golf is in 2017 in August, Webb hit 280 yards in the air for the first time. Since 2017, Webb's gained 29 pounds of muscle in the last 3.5, almost 4 years now. Wow. He's lost 4 pounds of fat, and he now has hit 303. So Webb's gained 23 yards in the air in the last 3.5 to almost 4 years, which is a lot. The incredible thing is we've maintained our level. Wow. If he was 100 and whatever 30th then, I think he's 120th now. It just shows you what's happened. And I know there's such a big debate right now. And yes, I know our technology is better, but Jack had better technology than Ben Hogan had. Ben Hogan had better technology than Bobby Jones. Bobby Jones had better technology than Sarazen, and all the way back to old Tom Morris. It's always been, it's the way the world works. But the thing that's changed is what's walking down our fairways.
Right. They're athletes.
They're athletes. What changed because of Tiger and VJ and Phil is you've got these kids that shouldn't be playing golf. Go home. Leave our sport alone. They're coming down with their shoulders are this wide. They're cut like a V. I heard recently that the average swing speed in the NCAAs is 5.3 miles an hour faster than the PGA Tour, which so all that's happening right now is that we are being inundated with real athletes that are working hard. When I played for the University of Florida, I'm 49 now, and fortunate enough to win a national championship there. We used to run stadiums and do push-ups and sit-ups. That was our working out. We're now, these gyms that they have are $1 million gyms that the golf team's working out at. So it's changed, and Webb's hungry, but he knows his place. He hasn't changed his golf swing to go get it. He's changed technique a little bit, and he's changed his body a lot.
That's great. It'd be good to see Webb be in play this week, but I'm glad the USGA is trying to bring everybody into the fold.
I agree.
And give some guys a chance, not just make it a bomber's paradise and whoever can hit it the furthest can go up there and wedge it on the green. I love the graduated rough idea. I think that's great.
Yeah, me too. I think it's great thinking outside the box. And again, I think that's what Jason Gore has brought to the USGA that they haven't had in the past.
Well, Paul, I'm going to let you get to the golf course and get to work for Webb. I really appreciate your time. And good luck to you this week. And when you're back here in Ponte Vedra, would love to have you on again and hear the story about how you got on Webb's bag. I know Webb has been just as good for you as you have been for him. And I know that the Tesori Family Foundation does a lot of good stuff for the community that I'm lucky enough to live in as well, and does a lot of stuff. So we'd love to have you on again sometime. But I know you've got a U.S. Open to go win.
That's exactly right. I love that plan. Thanks for having me on. Let's just make a plan. The next win we get, we'll talk about it on the next morning.
You got it. So I tell you what, right now, he's a let's have a 2-time at U.S. Open winner on next time we see you.
How good does that sound? I'm in. Wherever I got to buy into that, I'm buying in.
It sounds good. Paul, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, man. Have a great week. Good luck.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, buddy.
I just want to interrupt this interview real quick and give a shout out to my friends over at OnCore Golf. OnCore provides some of the most cutting-edge technology in a golf ball that I have ever seen. Their team in Buffalo, New York is changing the script of golf technology through their perimeter-weighted designs, which offer players enhanced accuracy and control for every shot on the course. With their award-winning Elixir and Avant 55 golf balls, they are transforming the game for players of all skill levels. Visit OnCoreGolf.com/Travis Fulton for more details about their products that are revolutionizing the game. Now back to the Stripe Show.